technician for the Baltimore City Council in his spare time.
Okay. There we go.
And thank you for the reminder. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a meeting of the Baltimore and Education Committee of the Baltimore City Council. We are here today with many honored guests throughout the audience to talk about the state of, to get a status update report about the state of our 21st century school programs, how we're doing, what we all need to do to keep things moving along. We're very honored to have so many of you here today, and we hope to hear from you. To my left is Councilman Bill Henry, a member of this committee. To his left is the sponsor of this bill and the reason for this hearing, the president of the Baltimore City Council, Bernard Jack Young. To his left is Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton, representing the 6th District. To her left is William Pete Welch, representing the 9th Council District. And to my right is Mr. DePaul. Oh, God, what I always do. He says started, but he's done such a good job already. Nibber. He's Council Services Assistant to this committee. This is the first hearing he's had that experience, but he's doing very well so far. Yeah. And to his right is Kara Kuntz, who is the Chief Legislative Assistant to the President of the Baltimore City Council. Mr. President, this is your resolution and your call to update, and I would appreciate if you would take a few moments to frame it out for us, and then we will begin with our panel for the afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You so eloquently already stated what this meeting was all about. It's about the MOU that was signed, and we want to know exactly where we are in the process. I know that we started off talking about 50 schools, which some was being built and some renovated, completely renovated. And this is an opportunity for us to gain this information from you all who are on the forefront of what we need to do to transform our schools for the 21st century. So that's the reason why we're all here today. So I'm hoping to gain some valuable information from you all because as it stands now, we just hearing about, it's going to be less schools. We're able to build less schools. We're able to renovate, and I'm saddened to hear that. So I just want to hear some of the reasons why this is taking place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a panel here this afternoon. Here's how this is going to work. It's quite an all-star cast. Dr. Gregory E. Thornton will be our lead-off speaker, and he is, of course, as you know, our new CEO of the Baltimore City Public Schools, except he feels as if he's been here 25 years, and so do we. Thank you. Second, we have Dawn Kerstetter, who is the Deputy Mayor, and she is representing the Office of Health, Human Services, Education, and Youth, which is a very busy agenda. Third, we have Mr. Michael Friends. He is the Executive Director of the Maryland Stadium Authority. And then we have Dr. David Lever. And I said to Mr. Lenz, Dr. Lever always gets the last word. We might as well give him the last word. So welcome, Doctor. This is the first time in my life I wasn't sitting in front of you, begging. Dr. Lever is the chair of the, what's that? I'm good. Thank you for that. There's so many surrogates. Right. All right. Welcome to our guests. And then after that, which is all going to be so brief, and according to the speakers, not to me. Then there will be a PowerPoint presentation that will be given to us. How long does that last? About 15, 20 minutes by Mignon Anthony, who is our new school system 21st century representative. She's our point person? Yeah? Okay. He's back home where we trained him and educated him and sent him out to run the world. Keith Scroggins, who's the COO of the Baltimore City Public Schools. And we have, oh my gosh, I know, Gary McGuigan, who is, you're vice president of the Stadium Authority, but most important of all, he's actually the man with his hands on the construction and projects, working here with Mr. Friends, the director. So they'll do the presentation, and after that, the first sign-in that we will hear from is Build Representative Elizabeth Reichelt. Who is co-chair of Build's Education Committee for this whole exciting rebuilding process that we're undergoing. So if I may, Dr. Thornton, if you will, I would ask that if you can, hold your questions. If you can, hold your questions.
We will if you will. I was like, we will if you will. Yeah, that's easy.
Right.
Let's do that until we get all the way through this whole thing, and then we'll do it.
What do you think? What do you think?
Dr. Thornton.
First, good afternoons to the Honorable Jack Young, President and certainly sponsor, to you, Mary Pat Clark, who's chaired this committee so well.
Oh, thank you.
To Bill Henry, thank you for your support, and also members of the council and members of the committee that have joined us. I know I speak on behalf of the three partners that I have the good fortune of working with on a day-to-day basis. Certainly Mike Friends is here, and you're going to certainly hear from him, as well as Dr. David Lever. I think you will hear from him. And then my partner in crime, Dawn Kerstetter, will be here, and she will be my next voice, the next voice up that you will certainly hear. But I wanted to come by and certainly tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity to update you on the work. And I also want to extend my sincere gratitude to the entire council for your vision and ongoing support of really trying to make opportunities better for the young people of our city. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank the community for their support. The community has been outstanding, and I would be remiss if I didn't just mention a few folks. Certainly, I think the Build team is here, and I think they got those pretty blue shirts on, and I think you're going to hear from them. But also, BEC is here, as well as ACLU. You know, these are the types of opportunities I think that brings the community together, and I believe our community has been galvanized with this opportunity that's been laid out before us. You know, what's important to me, and you've heard me say it throughout the entire process, and I'm new to the process. I'm very, very new, and I can't take credit for anything. I've been taking a few blames for everything, but I can't take credit for anything. But one of the things I've always, that's welcome to Baltimore. I feel at home then. One thing that's always been important to me is that this is our core mission is academic achievement. And one thing that's very important, that we produce from this wonderful opportunity a rigorous and robust academic program. That's essential. The other is that something I've talked about since coming on board is what I call a standard of care. That every youngster gets a really great opportunity to go to school. I would be remiss if I didn't share with you. I was in 4 schools today. I came out of 3. I was excited. And one, I just came out and shook my head that the conditions of that building were not such that I wouldn't want to send my own child to. And at the end of the day, it says that our work is certainly not done, but it certainly says we're doing the right work that certainly needs to continue. We've accomplished this through really maximizing the resources. You know, what I would say to you, when you look at our stock, we have the oldest buildings in the entire state. I was in Booker T, Washington today, and I think the building's age is 1895. I'm going to take a risk. Hopefully I'm wrong, that there's no one even living that has attended that building, and that building certainly is in need of some support. So what it says to me as we continue to do this work, this is just phase 1. and that we have to be as vigilant, and we have to continue certainly to ensure that every facility is up to speed and really meeting the needs of our people. Our 21st Century Building Plan was approved by the board in January 2013, and that's certainly a momentous day for us as a community and certainly for you as a board. What's critical to the success of that initiative is, one, that we reduce the city's portfolio, and what we said we would do is that we would reduce the city's portfolio by 26 buildings. And I'm going to tell you, we have more. We have more space than we need, Madam Chair. The reality, I do understand what you're blowing, is that, we were once a system that nearly had 200,000 children in it, and we're now 84,954 as of this morning. And what it does, it steals from the organizational capacity to support children. So we are on pace of reducing the 26 buildings. We want to right-size the district so our resources go to children. It's like having a big house, and we had a big house, and all the kids have left home, so we had a 4-bedroom house. We only using 1 bedroom. And what my wife is talking about is downsize. So we got to downsize. We got to right-size the organization. But I also realize that sometimes the schools is the last vestige, the last part of a community. Look at our communities. The stores leave, retail leaves, this leaves, and sometimes churches even leave. But I will tell you that schools have been certainly that shining star that allows communities certainly to stay together. But at the end of the day, we got to certainly look at ways in which we can continue to bring new energy to the system. We have to meet a required utilization of 86%, and that's reasonable. And at the end of the day, what we want to do is be certain that the facilities we have, we utilize it in the appropriate way. And we want to bring equity, and not just equity, we want to bring opportunities to our children throughout the city so they would have an opportunity to take advantage of some of the wonderful programs that I think we have in place. So those were critical success factors as we move forward. Our goal was working to maximize this historic opportunity. And I will tell you, it's a historic opportunity. I'm often in CEOs, superintendents meeting, and my colleagues say, we want the Baltimore City deal. Well, I'm going to tell you, they're watching us. And so it really says to me that we got to deliver, and certainly deliver it in a very highly efficient way. And we think this 21st Century Learning Initiative is a learning initiative. It's not just a building. I don't want us to lose sight. This is more than buildings. It's an opportunity to re-energize and use some transformational opportunities to really get our school district and get our children in really great places. Let me share with you briefly, and I will be brief, is that we have some successes to date. I'm proud of the successes, and I wouldn't be there unless the entire community was really working, kind of running together to get this work done. And I wouldn't be here without my team, and they sit around this room, and I like to take these public opportunities to thank them for their commitment. But let me tell you what's going on. 2 schools, Frederick and Fort Worthington, will begin the design process and are on track to open on schedule year 2017-18. That's good news. We got a groundbreaking to do. It's going to be winter, but we're going to still break ground. That was good news. 2 additional schools, Lyndhurst and John Eager Howard's feasibility study, were approved by the city schools and the IAC, with architectural teams scheduled to be in place by the end of the month. That's good news. The balance of Year 1 schools will be moving into the design phase throughout the spring. That's good news. Year 2 schools are just beginning their selection process for architects and conduct the feasibility studies. City schools made a very, very smart move. Some of the things I don't do is, they're not as smart as others. But I did make a really great move when I selected this young lady, young Anthony, who's going to talk to you. And she will head up and serve as the point for city schools in the project as we continue to move forward. She will be the single point of contact. On December 17th, the Board of School Commissioners, under the leadership of Dr. Shanacia Sauls, approved the closure of 6 programs at the end of this school year. And I know it's painful, but at the end of the day, it was part of the agreement we made. We accelerated closures on 4 schools. 2 were added to the list of closures, on target to meet the goal of 86% utilization. The Board of School Commissioners voted to surplus Waverly Middle Building back to you guys as the city, to the city. And we vacated, and I think that transaction is well in place. We will be adding, and this is an important piece, and this is Dr. Lever's piece, and this is Mr. Scroggins' piece. We'll be adding $3 million from our operating budget to really move with a very aggressive maintenance plan. The reality of it is I presented, you said you were at the Begathon last year. Well, I was there a few weeks ago with Dr. Lever. But the conversation really wasn't about new buildings, it was about maintaining what we had. And what we talked about was the fact that we can extend the longevity of a building by really great maintenance. This is where we've fallen short as a district. We have not funded maintenance in a way it should be funded. Keith Scroggins has had a minimal budget. I have the same size school district. I had the same size school district in Milwaukee, and I had about 6 times the amount of money that Keith had to do the work that he's had. So I'm pleased to say that $3 million, despite the budget challenges, I had to get that in, despite the budget challenges that we face, will be added this year to the budget. Next year, $6 million, another 3, which will be 6. Next year, and we continue to build until we actually take a $27 million increase over the base that we have now. That's exciting news, and I'm very pleased that Keith will certainly provide the leadership for that as we continue to move forward. But it's not without challenges, and I think our president actually talked about it, and the challenge that I hear most of the time as I move through the community. You promised 50, you promised 30, and now you're at 23 to 28. Well, let me tell you, it's our hope to do more and exceed expectation. And later in the presentation, we're going to walk through the criteria that got us to there. And I think, Mike, you're going to take that part, I believe, or Gary's going to take that part. Gary will take that part. You'll see how we got there. And the reality of it is we were basically, I think, hopeful. And I think the whole community has been hopeful about this initiative. I think it's the most talked about initiative in town right now. But the reality, as the cost studies began to come in, looking at certainly the scope of the program, we felt that we needed to dial it back in order to certainly meet the needs and expectations. But you will hear an in-depth presentation on that. So in summary, and I will summarize here, that we continue to meet and work with the MOU partners, and they've been a very great partnership to work with. They certainly have added capacity for us as an organization, and certainly I think we're going to be positioned for long-term sustainability and scalability of this initiative. We have conducted procurement in a fair and very competitive process, and that was very important to me. We've maximized the MBE inclusion in this project, which is important that everyone has an opportunity. When you have a tide this big, it should lift all ships. So we're of the impression that we have an opportunity to lift many of the ships in Baltimore. But one thing that was important to me and Mike was maximizing the opportunities for internships. And we wanted to be certain that our kids came away with this experience and to be able to utilize it as a way maybe for potential employment or internships, or big folks who are beginning to move into the trades in that direction could certainly have authentic learning experience and especially employment for I think the folks here in the city of Baltimore. And in closure, the use of 21st century building initiatives as the springboard, a truly springboard for long-term improvement of facility management and enhanced operations, including maintenance, which Keith will take a primary responsibility. He won't be cleaning the building. He's the CEO. He has a big team to do it. And now we have a bunch of other people, but he'll ensure that it gets done because I'm going to be having conversations, courageous conversations with him. But basically to certainly look at a way in which we can enhance the operational efficiency of us as an organization and as a district. So it's a delight to be with you. It's always pleasant, and I'm glad I'm here today to bring good news. And I think Don is going to, Costetta is going to come, the deputy mayor, who has been my partner in this. I will tell you, she never misses a beat. If I'm going to Annapolis, she's in the truck with me. If I'm coming over here, she's right with me. So, Dawn, let me use this opportunity to thank you for your unwavering commitment, you and the mayor of City Schools. With that, our Deputy Mayor, Dawn. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thornton, and welcome, Dawn. Speaking on behalf of, I have to say one thing, and Dr. Levers and Keith Scroggins and I guess we've been around along all this longer than, well, anybody else in the city. Dr. Thornton, when Keith Scroggins left city government, which we deeply resented, and went over to the school system, and worked with trying to make straight what repairs were required where. I mean, there were years of backlog. Today, if I call about a school, it will not only be addressed in this century, it will usually be addressed in this week. And that, in all my years, has never happened before that. So I don't know what the complaints are, but not from somebody, and we don't need to discuss it, but not from anyone who's seen the change. It's amazing. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome to the fourth floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, President Young, Chairwoman Clark, and members of the council and the Education Committee. Thank you for allowing me to be here today to represent Mayor Rawlings Blake as a proud product of Baltimore City Public Schools and as Deputy Mayor for the City of Baltimore, representing the Health, Human Services, Education, and Youth portfolio. I have been honored to serve as the mayor's representative in this tremendous partnership with City Schools, MSA, and the IAC. Working closely with our MOU partners, I'm pleased to report that the City of Baltimore has taken a strong lead on community planning and opportunities around new or renovated school sites in a program led by Tom Stozer's team called INSPIRE. INSPIRE stands for Investing in Neighborhoods and Schools to Promote Improvement, Revitalization, and Excellence. This includes an additional $5 million investment by the city. The city has also worked to craft plans for maximum diversity, participation, and work-based learning and hiring opportunities, as referenced by Dr. Thornton. In addition to ensuring the utilization of state-certified, locally based minority and women-owned businesses and creating the Supplier Diversity Outreach and Inclusion Plan, we have created a local hiring initiative whose goals are to prepare Baltimore City residents for jobs created by the School Construction Revitalization Project, to promote the hiring of local residents for these jobs by providing contractors and subcontractors with a streamlined process for accessing qualified job candidates, and to increase career awareness and work-based learning experiences for Baltimore City students in construction and related industries. While members of this council and the mayor are working hard to build a better Baltimore on many fronts, we know that the quality of our schools will determine if Baltimore continues to grow over the next decade. Together with our state officials, we will provide high-quality 21st century schools that will enable our children to develop the tools they need to succeed in college, in careers, in their communities. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our community partners in this effort, including the ACLU, BUILD, and the Baltimore Education Coalition, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. Yes. Let me just take a moment to acknowledge we have been joined by my colleague, Councilman Bob Curran, representing the 3rd Council District and a member of this committee, and Mr. Cooper, I'm so sorry, I skipped over you. Sometimes I get nervous like everybody else and make a mistake. This is Damian Cooper, the president of City Council's right-hand and left-hand person, and we're pleased to have him here with us.
Good afternoon, President Young, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Michael Friends, Executive Director of the Maryland Stadium Authority, and we really welcome these opportunities to tell the story and tell people what's going on, because we really want to be dedicated to, among other things, transparency in this program. Earlier, Chair Clark introduced Gary McGuigan from the Stadium Authority, who runs our Capital Projects Development Group, under which this program falls. But I also wanted to introduce Eric Johnson, who runs this program on a day-to-day basis. Eric devotes all of his time to this, and also David Wraith. Eric, if you want to stand or wave, you'll see his face around a lot. And David Wraith, our Chief Financial Officer, who'll be the point man for all the bond issuances. And it's really the efforts of these 3 gentlemen and their predecessors over time, their successes, their experience, that caused the legislature to get us involved in this program. To date in this program, we think we've worked very well with our partners in the MOU, the community, and other stakeholders, and we've enjoyed it. It's something new to us. We've met deadlines for important milestones, the MOU among the parties, governing roles and responsibilities, the annual program status report for the legislature, governor, and Board of Public Works, the hiring of a program management consultant to develop program infrastructure and supplement school and MSA staff, procuring architect engineer services for 4 schools and pre-construction management services for 2. We've also hired an internal auditor in order to provide an additional layer of oversight in performing our fiduciary duty regarding program funds. And as Dr. Thornton mentioned, we've experienced some challenges. The most important one being the number of schools estimated to be replaced or repaired during the program. And again, this issue, along with some other successes and highlights, will be dealt with during the presentation that we've prepared. But I want to say finally that these challenges notwithstanding, I'm happy to report that we remain on track to complete the program in 2020 per our original schedule. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here with us. And now we will go to the presentation. Oh, no, Dr. Lever. Oh, Dr. Lever. Last word.
Madam Chair, President Young, members of the Council, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak about the IAC's involvement in the 21st Century School Program. The speakers before me have covered the ground very, very well, so I only want to reiterate this notion that the partnerships that have emerged through this relationship, through the legislation and the program, have been very strong, very positive, and have been, as Dr. Thornton said, a springboard for other types of work. The IAC has some very specific responsibilities within this structure. Most important, I think, is the approval of projects that allows the projects then to move forward into architectural engineering design. So far, 4 projects have gone through the IAC, have been approved. We're anticipating hopefully 3 more within 2 weeks from today, and then followed by the other projects that will be brought forward as the year 1 projects, so that within a couple of months, this whole program will be working on full tilt. And we have been very much involved in the detail of these projects. Not myself so much, but other staff within the IAC structure are looking at actual designs, are looking at the educational specifications, working very closely with the staff of Baltimore City Public Schools to the why and the wherefore of projects so that we can support them, so they can be justified just like any other project in the state would be justified on that basis. As a side note, one of the IAC members asked back in September if the educational specifications for these projects were excessive, if they were producing square footages that were larger than would be produced by similar type buildings in other jurisdictions. My partner at MSDE worked with a staff person from the Department of Legislative Services and a very careful study comparing educational specifications here to other specs from around the state, and they found that these projects are well within the range of what a typical, say, elementary school, pre-K to 8 would be in other parts of the state. In addition, we're very much interested in the issue of utilization. The overall utilization, as Dr. Thornton said, there is excessive square footage and capacity within the school system that represents, in the most practical terms possible, a use of funds for heating, cooling, for maintenance that should be directed to the classroom. And I think Dr. Thornton would agree with that. So an aggressive program of closures is essential to right-sizing the school system. We're very much involved in that study through one of my partner agencies, Maryland Department of Planning, is in conversation at this moment with Dr. Thornton's staff over proposed changes to the closure schedule to determine what the utilizations will be after all of this takes place. Stadium Authority is doing a terrific job in terms of managing the 23 to 28 schools, whatever the final number comes out to be, which depends on many factors beyond all of us, the cost of construction being one of them, the cost of money, the interest rates being another, that none of us can really foresee with any great accuracy at this point. The IAC has focused on the 100 other schools that will remain. That means after 23 to 28 are replaced or renovated, after 26 facilities are closed, there will be something on the order of 100 schools that will remain. Those schools require an enormous amount of capital investment. And they're aged, as Dr. Thornton said. They need a lot of attention in terms of investment. They also need a lot of attention in terms of maintenance. The attention in terms of investment comes through the regular capital improvement program, which is under consideration as we speak. In 2 weeks, when the IAC meets, it will also be considering recommendations for 90% of the new governor's submitted capital budget. And within Baltimore City, there will be a number of projects that I hope will address the type of life cycle replacement projects which are essential to keep these schools functioning, to extend their useful life so they don't have to be renovated prematurely, create a good, healthy indoor environment for building occupants. That's essential. Concurrent with that is the attention that's being given to maintenance. As Dr. Thornton said, we are delighted that there is a plan in place now, which was approved by the IEC in September, the Comprehensive Maintenance Plan. It outlines a step-by-step procedure for the increase of the budget, increase of staffing, reorganization, provides measures of accountability on a year-by-year basis. We are meeting weekly, our staff meeting weekly with Keith Scroggins' staff to discuss maintenance issues, staying on track with the fulfillment of the CMP, the Comprehensive Maintenance Plan, and certain metrics that will be used to measure whether maintenance is improving. We're also very concerned and very involved in discussions with Mr. Scroggins' staff on facility project administration, from cradle to grave, the determination of project scopes, how the prioritization is established among projects, the sequencing of projects, the actual contract administration under construction, the handover and closeout of projects. Very much tied into maintenance, but also it's an area of concern. And we are involved in bi-weekly meetings with Mr. Scroggins' staff to discuss these smaller projects, not the 23 to 28 schools, but the small projects for roof replacements, for fire alarm, and other sprinkler projects, which are absolutely essential to the functioning of the school system. So with this, I think that we have all made tremendous progress in the 2 years that we've been working together on this program. And as I said, the partnerships that have evolved have been of tremendous use, will be long-standing partnerships. Once the 23 to 28 schools are done and they have to be maintained, the partnerships that are being established now will help to sustain this whole effort into the long future. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about this issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. And now we'll turn it over to this presentation. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I think this probably is a pause for us maybe to ask a few questions. We've been restrained.
All right. I wanted to ask, I remember when we was in Annapolis lobbying for the school money, there was a projection of 15 new schools being built and between 30 to 35 schools being completely renovated. What is the real numbers of how many schools are going to be totally built, newly built, how many are going to be renovated, and if it's lesser, why and what caused it? That's what I'd like to know.
What did you ask, Doctor?
Whoever can answer that question.
Let's answer the question, because I think that if you don't mind, and then we'll go to the presentation, but if you can answer the question, then, and by the way, I've just been told a couple minutes ago, believe it or not, I can't be heard in the back of the room. Can you hear me now? Okay, so that's how loud we have to talk. Go ahead, Mr. President.
Madam Chair, I'm just concerned about what we were told in Annapolis and what we are hearing now. And I want to know what changed, who changed it, and who's responsible for the change. We just need that explanation.
Can you speak Mr. Scroggins, yeah.
Can we turn it up or no?
I'm not, we're gonna, this is the president's resolution. I need for him to get his questions answered, and then we'll go back and do the, so Mr. Scroggins, yeah, if you can answer. Is that
The initial numbers that came out regarding the number of buildings that we were going to do related to the Jacobs report. And the Jacobs report primarily were concerned with bringing the buildings up to adequacy for educational purposes. It did not have the bells and whistles. It was not related to 21st century standards. It was merely bringing it up to minimal standards of adequacy for education. Once the bill passed and the Stadium Authority, we started meeting with the Stadium Authority, they had their consultants, they met with their consultants, and they reviewed the amount of money, because the initial 1.1 billion that was initially approved, of course, once you started looking at time and when the bonds were going to be put out, we realized that the dollar amount was probably in the neighborhood of about $970-some million. So you already have a loss of over $100 million. And in looking at those numbers, Mr. McGuigan, Mr. Friend's staff, they decided to evaluate as much as possible what could possibly be done by comparing all of the square footage amounts, the cost per square foot of schools built all around the state. It seemed that the numbers actually became even lower. That's when the numbers of 19 to 22 came out. So there were a number of other meetings with the consultants, and what was decided was that we would do a number of cost-saving strategies that would allow us to increase the number of schools. And those cost-saving strategies, which would be mentioned in this report, push the numbers up to 23 to 28. And that's where the numbers stand right now. That's why it's just basically the basic math, looking at what the cost per square foot would be, looking at how much money would be available from this program once the bonds were floated, and just trying to make the best guess in determining how many schools could be either constructed new or renovated with the amount that we had.
Okay, have we looked at other cities who were in similar situations that we were in, who have done more schools with less money than we're getting? Have we went to look at any other districts that took less money than we had and are building more schools?
I don't know what those dollars are that those other jurisdictions had, but I can tell you that an evaluation.
But have we reached out to see what they have done?
Yes, Mr. McGuigan, the Stadium Authority and their consultant did evaluate this cost per square foot for building of schools or renovating of schools in the other jurisdictions. Yes,
have we looked at any public-private partnerships?
We are looking at public-private partnerships. In fact, Dr. Lever has introduced us to a number of firms who have performed public-private partnerships all around the world. He even hosted a day-long seminar on public-private partnerships. So we're definitely looking at that as a way of gaining an advantage and hopefully increasing the number of schools.
Okay, because I want exactly what you want, and I want what the parents want. We want as many new schools and many renovated schools as we can get for that money that we have. And also, everybody's watching Baltimore to see how we do. And we need to really do this well. We cannot screw up. We'll be the laughing stock of the country. So we have to do this right. We have to turn every stone to make sure we're getting every bang for our buck. Thank you.
Understood.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scroggins. Thank you for your waiting. Did you want to say? Oh, sure.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Mr. President and the committee. My name is Mignon Anthony, and I guess I'm the person who's going to have to deliver. I'm the person who can't screw up, and I'm the person that Dr. Thornton hired to make this this initiative a reality with the partners who we have in this program. This is my first presentation as the executive director for the 21st Century Schools. I come from the federal government background. I've had about 30 years in public-private partnerships. I came from a project that was doing economic development of a headquarters project for the National Science Foundation in the city of Alexandria. I've done work with public-private partnerships in the District of Columbia, in Prince George's County, and in Arlington County. So I hope that I bring some expertise to the table. And my job really, I've had a lot of people ask me, so what exactly are you going to be here to do? And, you know, just being the central point of contact is one thing, but it's really making sure that we introduce processes that are accountable, that city schools is able to respond to MSA in as quick a manner as possible in terms of reviews and approvals. It is city schools' responsibility, and maybe the first, where's our presentation? Oh, okay. Because really the first slide goes to roles and responsibilities of the partners.
Okay, so
Great.
before
Yes.
you start,
Yes.
if you can do, not you, but if all three can do us a favor, we really need to, if you can go through fast, we can read, we can't see, but we can read. So, and I'm not,
We'll summarize.
I'm not being facetious.
That's
I'm
okay.
just saying that when you see a page, you know what it says because you've done this. Just tell us what it says and go
In the
on,
interest of
so
time.
so if you, I'm talking to everyone who's showing this, so that we can get through this and get back to a conversation
Absolutely.
about it, because I just saw a couple pages and I know that it's not, you know, it's, we don't all have our own little tablets
Very good.
here. Well, this is a city council. We're like our schools. We do the best we can with what we've got, and we're praying that you will too.
Very good. Absolutely.
So if we can get through this as quickly as possible, so
have
that
time
we
for
can get back to a conversation, it would be helpful. And we may ask you questions going through, but 20 minutes is too long to read something.
Okay, well, we won't talk you through it. We'll
Just
summarize.
tell us what it says.
I think
Yeah.
the first point is just to say that the roles and responsibilities of each of the partners is such that city schools' responsibility is to define the specifications that the designs for the schools are based on, to make sure that the approvals are in place. And as was said earlier, Maryland Stadium Authority's job is to watch the pocketbook, watch the funds, make sure that the monies are expended properly, and to manage the design and construction process. The IAC does general approvals and overall is looking at how the approvals for the program are related. And the other element of this particular slide just is to point out that the Stadium Authority is responsible for the majority of the replacement schools. City Schools is responsible for the majority of the renovated schools.
Really?
That's correct. And there are a few in between that we share responsibilities for, but that is one of the four corners of the memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's an important point to recognize, as City Schools is going to have, and I'll have a pretty robust staff of people in addition to the ones that we work on with the Maryland Stadium Authority. We'll also have a staff that is responsible for the design and construction of the renovated schools, those schools which have large renovations.
The facilities group.
Well, there's going to be two groups, because there's the groups that are in the plan. So the second one talks about successes, and I think the first thing to understand is that the schools, the 23 to 28 schools, are compiled in groups of, we call them year one schools and year two schools. And so there are 11 schools in the year one group, and there are 15 schools in the year two group right now.
Okay.
That's where it is right now. And so those are compiled of both completely new schools and renovated schools. So both MSA and the city schools have responsibilities in either of those categories among those first 26 groups of schools, which we call Phase 1.
Thank you.
Okay. This past year and the successes, I think Dr. Thornton talked about most of them.
I think he did a very good job, too, and thank you, Dr. Thornton,
He did.
for being able to summarize that. It makes us feel good that things are moving.
And the challenges. We can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
In 2014, those feasibility studies and those things that we talked about earlier that had to do with the estimates. That was really the work that happened at that point, is that the studies, the requirements for the schools were developed, and then the estimates were conducted. And then when the program manager that Maryland Stadium Authority engaged came on board, they looked at the estimates again. And that's where we had to look for savings, look for ways of construction and design that were going to complement the program and get more schools back, as many schools as we could, with the $977 million that's in the program at this point.
If I may,
Sure.
at this point, Councilman Curry, did you have a comment or question? Oh, yeah, okay. I thought it was on some, I just don't want you to get too far ahead before.
Okay. So I think that's kind of it. I mean, where we are right now is that we're at the 23 to 28 schools. The savings, the cost savings has been put into the formula that the Maryland Stadium Authority has, that we're working on from a budgetary standpoint right now. Over the next year, what's going to actually happen since as you heard from, I think, Michael Friends, that the architects and construction managers have been engaged for 4 schools. By the fall, they will have basically completed the design documents, and then another set of estimates will be done, and it'll be at that point, before the shovels go in the ground, or around that time, that we'll have a better gauge of whether we're on target with the estimates as they were developed, or whether there will be additional funds that we may be able to move into more renovations or other schools.
Question.
Yes.
Who lets the contract? Who awards the who holds the bidding auction and awards the contracts for architecture and construction?
Maryland Stadium Authority.
The Stadium Authority does.
That's correct, for all of the schools. At this point,
For
they are
all
conducting them
schools?
for all of them, yes. For all of the schools in the plan, whether they're new schools or renovated schools, currently, they will hold the same process for each school.
So basically, the Baltimore City Public School, the school board doesn't award contracts.
We're not doing it for the
If I could-
21st century schools.
Yeah, if
But
I
you
could-
do it
Award
for the,
contracts for the others.
If I could jump in for a second. Gary McGuigan with the Stadium Authority. Good afternoon. So if it's an MSA contract, new or renovation, then the Stadium Authority will award either the architectural contract and the construction contract. If it's a city school managed project, the school board will approve those contracts, and those contracts will be administered by city schools.
so basically, we're back on track for getting capital money annually to build schools. And then over here, we have 21st century schools? Or is it all one thing? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to confuse things, but, well, do you understand what I'm asking?
Can you hear me? Is this running? There are 2 parallel tracks, and you're correct. There's the 21st century program, which is
Stadium Authority.
what we're presenting on this afternoon, with 23 to 28 schools. And then in parallel, there is the capital improvement program.
Right.
There are also 2 smaller programs, but the capital improvement program has within it currently 2 major projects, which are themselves, we call them 21st century projects. But the majority of the projects submitted are the kinds of things I was speaking about before, life cycle replacement projects of individual building systems within facilities. This addresses the 100 other schools, as we call them. So, and this is how it'll be for a number of years. These 2 programs will run in parallel with one another.
I see. So there's something we're now calling the 100 Other Schools program.
It's a way of putting it. We call it the capital improvement program.
I got you.
No,
No, it's 2
no.
pots of money, so Well, why am I explaining? I just learned it. I don't know.
It is two pots of money. The majority of the funds for the capital improvement program come from state general obligation bond issue. The contribution to the revenue stream for the 21st Century program is $20 million from the state in lottery funds, $20 million from the city, and $20 million from the budget of city schools itself. A total of $60 million per year that will be contributed for the repayment of the revenue bonds that are issued or will be issued by the Stadium Authority.
And so that is the annual estimate of the bond repayment through the years? The 21st century?
That's how much will be available for debt service on an annual basis.
And how many schools does that debt service, 60 million a year, get us?
At this point, we believe that 60 million per year would allow us to raise roughly $980 million, given
That's
that.
the 980.
That's the 980.
And that's what we've got.
That's what we have. And what Dr. Lever is talking about at the capital improvements program, that's what you normally would, in past years, would compete for with other jurisdictions
So
for capital projects.
So there are two tracks, but there's, I'm just learning, there's 100 schools in it. There's 100 schools in the old CIP program we've always gone through, or in memory, we're still in. And that's reliant on annual allocations of capital funding to the IAC, from the state to the budget for the IAC to negotiate.
Yes, with the matching funds from the city and also the two smaller programs that address really smaller type projects, maintenance level projects.
That's why we're here.
Madam Chair, we're here today just to talk about the 21st, which basically has created what we feel 23 to 28 facilities. Not to talk about, certainly, and we were more than willing to come back around what the potential capacity is with the IAC dollars. So today is just the 23, because that's the
I
funding source
understand.
we're talking about.
We're just trying to figure out the lay of the land.
To be honest with you, I was confused. And so I'm glad we did have this conversation. So now we can really go back and focus on the 21st century schools, which I'm very concerned about, because I can't believe that we went, and I understand what Mr. Squarkin said, from 30 to 35 schools down to 23 to 28. And I need to know what that means, because when we're talking about the 15 new schools, what I'm trying to hear is, are we still going to have the 15 new schools, and then the other schools that we were talking about renovating, how many of them will there be? That's what I'm interested in. And all this is the 21st century. Am I correct? That's what I'm trying to
That's what we're
find out.
talking about today. But there's another capital, CIP, yeah.
I understand that.
But we're not talking about that today.
I'm talking about the 30 to 35 schools that we initially talked about. And I understand what Mr. Scoggins was saying. Now we're talking about 23 to 28 schools. I don't know what that means, because what I'm thinking is we're supposed to have 15 new schools built. So explain that 23 to 28 to me.
The 15 new schools was based upon the initial estimate of the total number of schools that would be constructed. What changes is obviously when you reduce those number of schools, those numbers will somehow change. Now, we don't know at this point how many schools are going to be new versus renovated until we receive the feasibility studies. They have to be done for each project. So for the first 11, we've gotten in the feasibility studies, and I believe the estimates, at least initially, for those 11 are 7 new and 4 renovations.
Well, all the feasibility studies aren't complete yet, but I believe we're at 4 new right now.
4 new?
4 new.
Yes, but
Until
there's
the other ones come in.
there's saying that there's 4 new and 7 renovations really doesn't do credence to the renovations. So when the feasibility studies look at the existing buildings, a lot of those other buildings labeled renovations are actually renovations with additions, and the additions could be as much as 80%. And even the renovation portion is a major renovation. These are not minor renovations. So the school, in essence, will be new at the end of the process. There's actually a chart in the PowerPoint which lists all the schools in year 1 and year 2, which identifies which ones are new, renovation with additions.
I think, if I could
Yes.
just point out, Leith Walk is an example of a renovation and an addition. It was a $32 million project. It is what I would consider at least 21st century, and that's the kind of school that we're trying to build. Violetville is a renovation and an addition. That was a $20 million project. So and Dunbar was a major renovation. It was a total gutting of the old building and a changing of the outside, the entrance to the building.
Yeah.
That was $32 million. And those are examples of what can be done with a renovation. A renovation can be just as good as a new building. Sure. The new buildings will be constructed on property where schools have a lot of excess property, and you can build the new school next to the old one. You can keep the students in the old building until the new one is constructed. But a number of our schools are basically landlocked in the middle of neighborhoods. There isn't enough land to build a new building right next door.
Right.
So those buildings, the students will have to be moved to swing space while that building is renovated, gutted and renovated. But it will have all of the bells and whistles, and it will be a beautiful building, just as Leith Walk and Violetville are.
Panelists, here's I have questions from 2 council members. So I think that if you'll forgive me for losing track of time, I'd just like to have questions. I'd like to hear from Build and anyone else who has checked off to testify, and then come back for perhaps more questions so that everyone can participate. My hearings usually end at 6. I'm leaving at 6. I'm sure you'd like to leave with me, so let's see if we can make it.
That doesn't mean we want to go with you to your next.
No, you definitely don't want to come to my next meeting that I'm going to. Councilman Curran.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the Council President for putting this resolution in back in October 13, and I think things have changed since October 13, and I want to thank the Chair for conducting this hearing so we can see what possible changes are. So with that being said, Dr. Thornton and Mr. Scroggins, I'm going to be very parochial. 242 Northwood Elementary, is that still on schedule to be renovated with possible additions or replace?
Here we go, we're into
Allison, can you join us? Allison Cohen here.
242 Northwood Elementary.
Northwood.
It's year 2.
Year 2?
Grab a mic, they're all on.
This is Allison Cohen. She's one of our project.
Hi,
Okay.
Allison Perkins Cohen. It's year 2, and it's still it would be on the year 2 schedule. We don't, and so the design is starting for them in the spring, so it's still on schedule.
Okay, designed this spring. Okay. Dr. Thornton, I still need you to come to the community up there concerning the design, hopefully first Saturday in May. Now, that school is not landlocked as much as other schools because it is the footprint there is quite extensive. Do you believe that that will have to be closed, or will we be able to do construction around the current school?
Actually, if I can answer this one, Allison, if you don't mind. And also just to address your last question, the year 2 schools haven't started the feasibility study process yet. We're in procurement for those consultants, so the feasibility study process will be ongoing probably till about the fall. And at that point, it's determined whether it's replacement or renovation. So it's unknown today whether it's replacement or
But it's
renovation.
still in the pipeline to be.
It is, but it's
Okay.
not starting design this spring. It will be probably about a year's time.
Okay. And one other parochial question to my district, 313, Lois T. Murray. That's still scheduled to be the program moved in year 4.
So Lois T. Murray, I believe, is moving into Walter P. Carter.
Okay.
And so it's a year 2 school as well. So as Gary said, it would start the feasibility studies
That
in the
property
spring.
will be vacated.
Pardon?
That property where 313 is located will be vacated.
Yes.
And I
it's-
think Mrs. Groggins knows where I'm going with that, and hopefully that was still on schedule. That's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, Mr. President. Or no, excuse me, Mr. President, pardon me. Councilman Henry's next, and then the
No, go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, getting back to the 21st century schools. I know I had a list, but I don't know where it is. But I need to have a copy of that list of the schools that were supposed to be completely built and those that were supposed to be renovated. Because I do know that there was a school in East Baltimore that was on the list to be either newly built or renovated, and it was off, and I want to see what school it was. Thank you. And then for the Stadium Authority, I'd like to know, are you guys following the city's MBE, WBE, or what? I mean, I need to know that. And also how we can get our citizens directly involved in the jobs that this program is going to produce. Those are critical to me.
I can address the second and third questions, Mr. President. So this is a state program, and we will follow the state MBE guidelines. We did agree to address 2 plans in the MOU. One is an MBE, a local MBE plan, which is trying to utilize local state certified MBEs, and that plan should be final this spring, an implementation plan. And the second plan is a local hiring plan, which will also be unveiled this spring. It's almost in final form with the implementation of that. The idea on the local hiring is really to induce the contractors to come up with plans on how to hire residents, and with those plans being graded and actually at the part of the selection of the contractors, that will be part of the reason for selecting them from a technical criteria. So it has some juice to it.
And what was the first question?
Was they following our WBE? The list of the schools that were supposed to be
Yeah,
newly built and the ones renovated. I need to see that list.
the original list. Councilman Henry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, for my first question, I just want to piggyback onto my colleague's question about Northwood Elementary. And actually, I guess this wouldn't technically be a question. This is more of a warning, which is I understand that formally haven't been through the feasibility study process for Northwood Elementary, but I can tell you right now there are a lot of people in Northeast Baltimore who are going to lose any, you're going to lose a lot of credibility in your feasibility studies if what comes back is that Northwood Elementary needs to be anything short of torn down. That has been very clear for several years as we've been looking at all of the problems in the schools across the city. Northwood Elementary has been a poster child for one of the ones that not only really needs to be completely replaced, but has the footprint to allow that replacement to be built on site while the kids can stay there until they can move into new. So that's just sort of a heads up that I hope that what comes back in terms of your process mirrors all the previous assessments that have been done of that building, because if it doesn't, that's going to show a gap in how the Stadium Authority is looking at this problem compared to how everybody else so far has been looking at it, and that could be an unpleasant gap for us to cross emotionally.
And just to make it clear, that isn't a Stadium Authority issue. The feasibility studies are run by city schools. They decide the schools, the program, just to be clear.
But you guys didn't you already do? I thought you guys already did these.
That's the
It
Jacobs.
wasn't that the?
That's Jacobs.
For year
Okay,
one.
all right.
Northwood is
All right,
a year two school.
And then my second question, and this goes to the multiple uses of the term right sizing in the opening statements from many members of the panel. And I'm asking this because this came up in a conversation I had at a meeting earlier this morning. Without being too facetious, what is the right size? I mean, what is the expectation for how many kids are supposed to be in a classroom? How big is that classroom supposed to be? How many classrooms should there be in a building? Is there some type of clear, understandable standard that we can be doing a better job of disseminating across the communities so that everybody knows what to expect?
Sir, let me certainly start. We're attempting to we will hit an 86% utilization. Presently, right now in city schools, as I look at certainly the portfolio, we go down as low as 30% in some buildings and as high as 120% in others.
Thornton,
But our target
let
is 86%.
Let me just pause you for a second.
Yes, sir.
We hear the utilization rates all the time. The problem with that is it still doesn't necessarily match what people, like if you've got a building with 8 rooms and each room has 20 kids in it, to someone outside of your field, you walk in, that building is full, and that building is fully utilized. But my understanding is that it may not count as 100% utilized because there is a formula for how many kids are supposed to be in a classroom of a certain size. And that is where we end up with low utilization rates in some cases, not because there aren't enough kids in the school, but the room is bigger than the number of desks that could fit into it. And so that room counts as underutilized. That's what I was looking for. Is there a straightforward chart or graph or formula or something that we can use so that we can explain that to people?
Dr. Lever, do you want to answer that? From the state standpoint?
Answer that from a statewide perspective.
Dr. Lever, that's the only thing that counts because that's what everybody talks about meeting.
There is no statewide formula. That is a local board decision of how many children should be in each classroom.
Really?
Yes, it's a local decision, and some jurisdictions follow what was called state-rated capacity, which is essentially a budgeting figure. It's not meant to indicate that this is what a school system should put. The budgeting figure says that for grades 1 through 6, it's 25 kids in a classroom. Pre-kindergarten is 20, kindergarten is 22. The upper grades, it should be 25 per classroom. There's some nuances to that. For instance, for a science classroom laboratory, you wouldn't want to see more than 28 kids. That has to do with safety issues.
What about if it's special ed and you've got 12 kids in a room and yet you're told you're not at capacity because you don't have a total number of kids, but you've got the 12 kids that are in this special ed.
From our perspective, that would be too many from the perspective of budgeting.
Okay,
We
you've
use
got 8.
10.
You've got 8.
Right.
All
But
right,
you
I got
see-
one with 8.
But this is a very good example because our formula says, and this is for budgeting purposes, says 10 per classroom for special ed, but many jurisdictions, because of their local bylaws, Their local rated capacity will not put more than 7 kids in, and that does depend on the level of the issues that the children are facing. You know.
So,
but
okay, keep going.
So you have jurisdictions which, because they can't build fast enough, have more kids per classroom than they would actually like, and they're trying to build their way out of that.
Say that first part again. Why do they have more kids in the
Because
class?
they can't build fast
Because
enough.
they
They're
can't
using
build fast enough.
relocatable classrooms,
Okay.
and even with relocatable classrooms, they're still overcrowded. You have other jurisdictions where local policy establishes a number of kids per classroom, which is less than the state-rated capacity. Worcester County is an example of that. They do that for educational purposes because they think that that's the best way to deliver the educational program. You have Montgomery County has established a smaller class size within certain areas of a
If
jurisdiction.
you could pause for just a second. Some of us want to savor this.
Pardon me?
Okay.
Sorry?
I turned it down, but I must have turned it up, Doctor. I'm sorry, I can't.
Okay.
Just take a moment.
Always like to have music when I talk. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure exactly where I should go with it.
Her new committee staff person is going to learn that one of the things that's going to be required at the beginning of each meeting is for him to actually open up the back cover and remove the battery from the phone.
Right.
Okay.
But to go back to your initial point, there is no formulaic approach. Every jurisdiction has to approach it in their own way. And part of this, and a key component of it, is the staffing ratio. Because even if a jurisdiction would like to have, say, 25 students per classroom, the fact of the matter might be that because of their own operating budget, they can only provide enough staff so that they can meet a local formula of 27 or 28 or even 32 children per classroom. That's not what they would want.
And so, so if the staffing ratio is, say, one person for each 32 kids, one teacher for every 32 kids, if that's what the money pays for, then that classroom, in some fashion, is supposed to be holding 32 kids.
According to the local,
According to the
right,
local-
but according to state-rated capacity, it will be overcrowded.
Right, but if they've set a local capacity
right.
of 32, because that's what the money fits.
Yes, that's correct.
But then if there were only 28 kids in the class, it's going to show up as underutilized.
On a local
On a
basis,
local
not from
level.
a state's perspective. That's right. Well, from a state perspective, it would still be an overcrowded classroom.
It would, okay, so that would count as overcrowded for your purposes.
Right, and if that were true across the school, not just one classroom isolated and other classrooms underutilized, then if that project is submitted for a capital improvement program, say for an additional project, then it's very likely that it would be justified based on an enrollment from the state's perspective.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So there is no such thing as an 86% state requirement for capacity?
No, there is no.
Okay.
In Baltimore City, as established through the MOU, there is a utilization target, which is 86%, which is system-wide. Does not mean that each school will necessarily be 86%, because as Dr. Thornton said, you're always going to have, in any jurisdiction, some schools that will be underutilized, other schools that are overutilized. That has to do with
So
people's
you're
choices
you go across the system.
across the system.
Okay. Councilwoman, thank you. Councilwoman Green,
Thank you,
Green
Madam.
Middleton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one just quick statement that I would be remiss if I didn't mention it, and 2 questions. First, the statement, I just want to just publicly say that I still honestly believe that it's a mistake of the closure of Langston Hughes Elementary in my district at this time. My question, and one important question, I was at one point in my career as past director of the state's apprenticeship system, and I just see, and as our president said, the country is watching this whole thing, the whole movement of what's happening here with the school system. And this is just a wonderful opportunity for the school system to really grasp of what apprenticeship really is. and have an opportunity to really develop a career apprenticeship program for high school students to participate in what's going on and just be, them being a part of all of this. And I yield my assistance. This is a state-city partnership. We have a state apprenticeship system right within the Department of Labor License and Regulations, and also with the adult learning. It's an opportunity for some of our high schools, like Forest Park High School, to actually get a program in there as pre-apprentices, to actually start having them, do some of the 144 hours and also get paid. I mean, I think you should have someone to really start working on that. I mean, it's simple. It's a lot of, I don't want to see you hiring contractors, subcontractors to do work and just use the apprentices that they have. I want you to develop the school system to develop their own program. You have the skill and money to do that. And as I said again, I'll yield my help and connections, because this was something that I was involved in for at least 7 years as the director of the state system. So I just think it's a wonderful opportunity. So I'm putting that out there, and you were going to say something on that question before I go to the next one? Yes.
I'm Michael Thomas, and that work has already started.
Okay.
And we're definitely going to take you up on your offer to partner with us. But we have the CTE programs in our schools, and we actually have them in Forest Park as well. And what we're looking at is maximizing this opportunity, and we've been working with the Stadium Authority, we've been working with MOED, we've been working with the State Apprenticeship Office as well to make sure that we're bringing those opportunities into our schools for our students.
I think it would be great if you give the chair of the committee a packet or something so the council can be updated on what's going on, because I didn't have any idea about that.
Yes, ma'am. And it's also a part of the local hiring plan that Gary talked about earlier.
Wonderful.
And it's also a part of the inducement that Gary talked about, and having contractors or the folks that are going to do this work to have these programs embedded within their proposals, so we can make sure that the kids are being hired and paid, as you stated.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And just one last one. We're talking about the renovations and so on. We know that these buildings are centuries old, and we know that asbestos jumps up. Is there a concrete safety plan? Are you talking on that, and how you're maneuvering and going to move safely the children? And I mean, I don't see any of that in this, but as far as safety of the kids not being exposed to the asbestos in these schools.
You mean during renovation?
During renovations.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for each individual school, there'll be definitely a safety plan that takes that into account. And from a cost standpoint, we have a contingency for hazmat materials. So, but that will be the top
like
priority.
that in writing as well, given to the chair. Just what your plan. We'd love to know that, because we get those questions from parents and on as well.
When it's happening.
Right.
But we'd like, it would be nice to have it in advance so that we know what provisions are written into your contracts about asbestos and other flying debris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm moving on, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to go to people who have signed in. I'm beginning with Elizabeth Reichel, co-chair of the Build Education Committee. And then I'll go to people who have signed in. Is this the only list? Nope. People who have signed in and said they want to testify. And then, if you have questions, please address them to us, and then we will ask our expert panel to please respond We'll ask them. Don't, just talk to us. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you, Tom. Now you're leaving. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Tom Stoser, Director of the Department of Planning, City of Baltimore. Thank you for being here. You heard about that capacity thing, right? I did. Okay, Bob. Councilman.
All right. Thank you, President Young, Committee Chairwoman Clark, and members of the council. My name is Elizabeth Reichelt, and I am the mother of 3 children, Joseph, Alex, and Cecilia, who go to Roland Park Elementary Middle School. I stand here today representing Build leaders from across 14 schools. I am the co-chair of our Roland Park School Build Engagement Team and co-chair of the Build Citywide Education Action Team. The last time I was here was almost 3 years ago. It was April 13th, 2012, but I was sitting over there. It was my son Joseph who was standing here. He was in the 3rd grade at the time, and he came to tell you why you should support the bottle tax.
Oh, gee.
He explained that he couldn't drink the water out of the fountains at Roland Park, and that he and most of his friends would prefer to hold it all day rather than use the restrooms at school. Joseph and the Roland Park Elementary Middle School community supported the bottle tax because we knew that was the critical first step towards winning the funding needed to carry out the bold vision to fully modernize and renovate all of the approximately 160 city school buildings within 10 years. After we won the bottle tax, Roland Park went to Annapolis, and in 2013, our community represented 100 of the over 3,000 students, parents, teachers, and community members that Build, Child First, the BEC, the ACLU, and everyone organized to come down and call on our legislators to pass House Bill 860. Roland Park went even though we knew our school would not be built until year number 6 of the school construction plan. Build has been with the City Council, city schools, and the mayor all the way in championing schools construction for Baltimore City. With the City Council and the mayor, Build went to Annapolis. We stood shoulder to shoulder. We convinced the legislators to support city school construction and Revitalization Act. And in 2013, when we won the School Construction and Revitalization Act, which called for the construction or replacement of 15 new buildings and the renovation of 30 to 35 schools for a total of 45 to 50 schools, we celebrated. We celebrated in October 2013 when Mayor Rawlings Blake stated the funding would cover 15 new or replacement schools and 30 significantly renovated buildings for a total of 45 buildings. But in the fall of 2015, when we were told by the 4 parties of the MOU that we would only get 23 to 28 buildings, the 4 parties, they, in that one fell swoop announcement, essentially eliminated almost half of the schools that were originally intended to be part of the Phase 1 funding, including City Springs Elementary, which I believe President Young might be the school on the east side that you were wondering about. And we have parents and students and staff members from City Springs now. They were originally in year 3, and now they are not funded. So they are currently not going to be renovated or rebuilt. And just to give you a picture of what's going on at City Springs, in the past 10 years, City Springs enrollment has more than doubled from 350 to 749 students. However, there has been no physical expansion to match that enrollment. Consequently, they had to cut their library in half to create a new classroom. They have had to turn offices into classrooms, and they've put those offices in stairwells, and they have as many as 4 staff people sharing the stairwell offices together. So what has happened? What happened between 2013 and 2015? We're confused. With that change in numbers, the 4 parties essentially doubled the timeline from 10 years
to fully modernize and renovate all schools to 20 years. Who is responsible for this? We are confused. In Roland Park, we still have the problems of non-potable water and decrepit bathrooms. And if Roland Park has these problems, we can only imagine what other schools have. Actually, we know it because we begin to visit those other schools because we stand with them. And at Roland Park, for 700 middle schoolers, we only have 8 computer stations available in our library for students to use after school. We know other schools have these problems and more. I offered to loan my son Joseph my laptop so that he could take it to the library, but it wouldn't do any good because they don't have wireless access in the library. No. So this is one school. You can just imagine what it is in the other schools. And this does not bode well for my child who has said that he wants to go to MIT, and I am positive he is not the only child in this district who has dreams of big, great things. Joseph has 6.5 more years in Baltimore City Public Schools. He and other children deserve and need to go to 21st century school buildings. I am asking you to stand with Joseph and with the other 84,954 students who deserve the same, and ensure that phase 1 of this school construction covers a minimum of 30 to 35 schools. We need this now. We can't wait. Baltimore City can't wait. Schools keep families from leaving Baltimore. They keep taxes from leaving Baltimore. We can't wait. If we do this right, it could bring new families and new taxes into Baltimore. We can't wait. Will you stand for no less than 30 to 35 schools in phase 1 without any holdup? We can't wait.
Thank you very much. I'm now going down the list. Robin Kessler has checked off to testify. You're on. She will be followed by Linda Smith.
Thank you for having all of us here, and I'm not going to go over everybody's names because I don't remember everybody's names. I'm pretty new to this.
Just speak
Okay.
loud.
I want to know a couple of things, and I also want to thank the previous speaker for bringing up all of the issues that she just did. I want to know about the accountability of all of these feasibility studies and who's involved in this, because I believe there should be educators and community members on them, and I'm not sure that there is, so I think that needs to be clarified for us. Also, who is making the capacity decisions on these buildings that you want to shut down? I don't think it should come strictly from a business perspective. I think there need to be educators and people who are actually on the ground floor of our educational system to help with these decisions. Also, I've done a little bit of construction, and I've talked to a lot of people in construction, and they say gutting a building is way more expensive than building a new one from scratch. When you talk about the asbestos from those very, very old buildings, the abatement of that is a huge, huge expense. And I just really think we need to know what this feasibility study is. Okay, feasibility studies make determinations. What are your determinations, and what's the money figures for these? Because gutting a building and putting in brand new stuff, to me, is much more of a high price than it is to build a new facility. And I think I'll stop there to give other people a chance, but I really think we need more accountability of who's making these decisions. And we need educators on these committees.
Thank you. Thank you. The next person is Linda Smith, followed by Mike.
She's a little
France. Oh, that's you. That's you.
Okay.
You did
I'm Linda
very-
Smith from the west side of Baltimore. I've been an educator, been a parent. My son went to Roland Park Elementary School, middle school. I know about their drinking problems with the water and the bathrooms. I go to meetings at Edmondson High School and I go to the bathrooms and inspect bathrooms. And I notice that the sink is on the floor, not attached to the wall. When I go to these places, I've taught in Baltimore County, and I've watched the city kids come to play at my high school, and their jaws just drop open when they see the gym, when they see the bathrooms, when they see the hall. And it's like, I'm a city resident, I'm paying city taxes, and I feel sorry for these kids because they don't have just basic things that make them feel good, make them feel like they're worth something. I agree with Robin with renovating something is real expensive. Just look at what Ty Pennington does when he comes to a project. Down it goes, build it up. Our community's city counting. I noticed that the county pays less per square foot than the city chart had. The county has one model for an elementary school for 750 kids. I know, I go to those meetings. And they change the building design to fit the new land. They make it so it works. They had one school in the southwest area that they had to keep because it was historical. And they were trying to keep some of the things there to honor that. However, everything else was new. With asbestos, with the wiring, with the water, with everything else, the plumbing, yeah, it's cheaper to get one design, make it work, and have more kids have schools that they can be proud of and work hard to be better citizens. We are losing, in my community, the house values are going down $50,000 to $100,000. When that goes down, it's for 3 years. That's hurting the state, it's hurting the city for revenue. We're city county. Our people, even on our board, are moving from the city to go to the county schools. They also are doing it for the bios too, but that's beside the point. Because our system is so slow and people work from home for a lot of people. They work in Washington. We're close to the Halethorpe station for the train. And we need schools that help our kids stay here in the city. We love the city. We like the convenience of things the city has. And we'd like to be proud of our schools because that's the first thing they ask for when they go to sell a house. The realtor wants to know how's the schools. We have houses in our area that have been on the market for over a year. And we can't get people to even get out of their car to look at the houses when they find out it's in the city. And that's sad. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Make a favorable motion.
Yeah, but I'd like to just say a couple things.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay? And then we will? Ladies and gentlemen, that's the last person that had checked off to test. Okay, come on up.
Who that is. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
President Jack Young, Chairman Clark,
Yes.
other members.
Don't hit the wood because it vibrates then through
Okay.
yeah.
I
please.
represent, Julius Henson, I represent the Berea community. We are scheduled to close Fort Worthington, well, the school board scheduled, to close Fort Worthington Elementary School June 2015. Now,
You're rebuilding that school.
yeah, they're gonna tear it down.
Yeah.
Transfer the kids out, and in 2017, the school will be reopened. Right. Okay. The problem thus far is that there's little or no input from the community. There are several bosses here. It's the school board, the stadium authority, the architect on this project who did the feasibility study, and also doing the architectural plans are Grims and Parker. Well, they don't come to the community and ask them anything. I'll give you an easy example. In their wastewater management plan, they plan to take the water off the roofs and put it in these holding pods in front of the school building.
Rainwater.
Rainwater.
Not wastewater.
Well, not wastewater.
Well,
but,
there's a big difference coming down a roof.
Okay.
Believe me.
Rainwater.
Standing under
Okay.
it.
Well, I got an issue with throwing away good rainwater anyway, but that's not the point. So they put the water in these holding containers. Well, when it's not raining, to them is water management, rainwater management. To us, it's rats. Because all you're going to do is get a bunch of rats to burrow in those holding containers when it's not raining. So, but that's just one example. If they would involve the community, another quick example is we have a rec center, okay?
Go ahead.
In the new school, there's no rec center anymore. In your 21st century school deal, you say that 21st century school, Berea community in the school is the largest asset in the community. It is supposed to work for the community, yet there's no input from the community. So many issues. We had a meeting last week, and we list a list of things that we found problematic, and the architectural firm, we have no confidence that they're going to get back to us. The only way we get information is we go to the Urban Development Design Review Panel and get information there. If it would behoove you, I think, to get those notes, because many of the architects on the panel their position is the same as the communities. So what we would encourage the council to do and the school board is to meet with the community. The people who lived there for 50 and 60 years know something about the community. And I think the community's input would be invaluable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henson. We will follow up with you on that. Is this a lot? Wait a minute, everybody. Hold it. If you want to speak, get in line, please. Yes, Frank. Okay.
Hi,
Okay.
Chairwoman.
Wait a minute. Anyone
Sure.
else? Okay. Whoop.
I signed. I'm not sure where the paper ended up.
You signed, but you didn't check off. But that's okay.
Oh, I thought I
Frank,
did.
you guys are welcome to speak.
You actually signed up twice and checked neither time.
We have that. Speak.
Okay.
Speak to
Hi.
us. Speak
Good
to
evening, Chairwoman Clark, members of the committee, President Young. I'll be very quick. I first want to thank you for all the effort that you put in to helping us win as unified city, the school construction program. You played an important role in passing a very difficult beverage container tax, so we want to thank you for that. That resonated loudly and clearly, saying that Baltimore City was very committed and that we were willing to put even more skin in the game. Just so everyone knows, out of that $60 million per year, 2/3 of that is city money and not state money. Since the bill has passed, we've been very active in monitoring the progress. And sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Frank Patinella from the ACLU of Maryland. I'm speaking for the ACLU Education
know
Reform
you,
Project.
Frank,
Maybe not everybody, but thank you. So we've been active in monitoring the process. We go to all the MOU committee meetings. I encourage you to go to those as well to find out what's going on, to keep up with it along as progress is being made. We have been to a number of the meetings, design meetings at the local schools where the architects are starting to engage. We've been to the meetings where they're discussing the feasibility study and the design process. And those meetings are very exciting. There's a vision of 21st century school buildings that's put out. And there's a lot of people involved at most of the schools. We want to make sure that the word is getting out to everyone that needs to be at the table for the conversations. A lot of times, or sometimes, we've been to certain meetings where there's not as much of a turnout as we would like to see. And this is a multi-million-dollar investment in the neighborhood that has long-lasting impacts for 10, 15, 20, 30, even more years beyond. So we want to make sure that we encourage City Council to get involved in that meetings. At the very least, make sure that there are email blasts that go out coordinated with city schools, and that goes with other city departments and the Office of Neighborhoods. We want to encourage as much promotion of these meetings as possible. And the other two things that are going on is the Community Schools Initiative, making sure that there are the right partnerships in these schools, because these schools have to be more than just the typical school that worked in the past, but they're not going to work for the 21st century. We need to make sure that there are resources that wrap around the child, that there are opportunities for children to get involved with things such as Councilwoman Middleton suggested with apprenticeships and other needed programs and opportunities that children can access. So these schools can really be hubs of the community and serve a much broader purpose than kids going to schools and the doors close and then they leave and the doors close. The other part, Ms. Kerstader mentioned about the neighborhood impact. This is very important. There's a lot of cutting-edge projects around the country that are doing really great things in terms of leveraging a school construction investment in a neighborhood where there could be other development happening, coordinating with the schools. And I know that the planning department's looking at that, but we're going to be working closely with them with the Transform Baltimore campaign. We've organized the Community Development Committee to be active in that process for those that want to work on the community development aspect connected with the new school projects. And lastly, which was touched upon, is the 100-plus school buildings that are not in the 21st century plan. Everyone knows that those schools are still the oldest in the state, and they have a lot of problems, many that you heard from previous testimonies. So we want to make sure that the state CIP remains at its current level. We want to make sure that Baltimore City gets as much as Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and Baltimore County. And the last thing is that the MOU partners are doing a tremendous job in really developing this program. It's a very new thing for Baltimore City, so they had to iron out some kinks and some bumps along the way in the road, but this program has to be managed well, and we need to see the biggest impact as possible with these schools. And it needs to resonate well in Annapolis, and that's how we're going to win phase 2, because everyone needs to have a modern school building. So.
Amen.
Thank you.
Or at least one where you can drink the water.
Right. We're going for a little more than that, but yes.
Survive the
Yep.
cold.
You're right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we hear, just if you give me a minute, a couple things. First of all, this is a resolution that called us here together, but it needs a vote. So I'm just going to ask for a motion and a second.
Madam Chair.
Move the resolution favorably.
Madam Chair, I move a second to the Councilman Henry's favorable report from the Education Committee for City Council, Bill number 13-013R, 130R, favorably from the Education Committee, so it can come out in second reader Monday.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
You got the roll call.
I'm not doing it. It's
All
a
right.
resolution. It's fine.
All right, aye.
We got your name.
All right.
We
aye.
got your name.
All right.
But we know you'll. And you're everybody a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Secondly, I am going to have to leave in 5 minutes. If I may take a minute to just say something, I apologize to you, but I have no choice, and I hope we're all ready to leave in 5 minutes, or when these gentlemen have finished. I have to say, as a bubby of a bunch of public school children and the mother of 4 who are well over age now, but most of all as a council person who voted for the bottle tax and lost a lot of votes in the process, really, perpetually, I would have done it 10 times more. I would have doubled the tax. We promised our people in this city that we were going to change it all. We weren't being frivolous or extravagant. We gave what we had to contribute to that effort, what we thought was what was required. I understand what everybody's saying, the money market, the cost of construction, and all that. we have to find a way to do what we said we were going to do. It's nobody's fault that we've fallen so short. But we're going to have to ask our partners to help us get back to where we began. And that's, I don't know how to do that, but we'll find a way. We found a way before. I mean, the people in South Carolina, they had ups and downs like this. They had the same kind of money market problems and everything else. And they sort of regrouped and worked their way through it. And I think we would all feel better if all our partners could spend some time around a table with us to figure out where we go from here. We thank you for everything you're doing, how hard it all is, and it's a brand new thing. But we can't have 100 schools that are waiting in line for an annual investment and hope to heavens they get it, because it doesn't work that way. That's why we're doing this project. We're doing this project because you can't sequentially build schools, because by the time you do that with 100 schools, you've lost, though half the schools are one of your maintenance nightmares because it's falling apart. So you have to keep doing it, and we haven't done it for so long that we have this huge mountain to climb. So God bless everybody who's inventing ways for us to do what we are doing. I gotta say, and then we've got to do what we promised to do. We promised to do, and I don't know how. But we hope that you'll hang with us while we work with you all to figure out how, because it's got to be done.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Just one comment before we hear the other two gentlemen speak. And I know I can't speak for the Berea community, as Mr. Henson did, but I can speak for the Prairie Lock Covenant Association community, and Dr. Thornton and the powers to be will be meeting with them in May over the concerns of the design and the traffic problems on Winford Road. So I do know that the school systems has agreed to meet with communities if asked to be. And
that's all we do is meet with the school system.
Yeah.
The community lives on North Avenue. And the school system comes out to meet us where we live.
So I just want to mention that the Dr. Thornton and the powers to be does get communities engaged when they're asked to be.
And I'm going to follow up with Mr. President, who knows this area better than anyone in Berea, and I represented it for 16 years, and find out what is being said. But, and if Mr. Henson's here, I'll grab you on the way out. But in my district, I might not like everything everybody said at a community meeting, and I might have taken exception, and I might have said no, and my neighbors might have done it too. But heavens knows, we've been at those community meetings. We've been part of that process. We've helped change that process away in terms of a year one, year whatever, or design, or location, or everything. And I've been around enough to know that that is going on in every corner of the city. And I just think, I'm sick of it. But I go because it's our future, it's our neighborhoods, it's everything. It's what someone said. Schools are the cornerstone of our neighborhood. And as the school thrives, so thrives the community. And so, as Dr. Thornton knows, and all his troops, we've been meeting. And we've been getting results, and we've been getting changes made, and it's been consistent with the same people, so they know now who we all are and about our communities. Gentlemen, you get the last word.
Thank you. President Young, Chairperson Clark, members of the
Yes, sir.
council, honored guests and citizens. I am on the list. My name is Jim Smith from the Westgate community. I did not have a question when I signed in. My question is, if we do not have enough money to do everything we had planned earlier, to include the same number of schools, what criteria is used to remove a school from the list? How do you decide who
Don't get
doesn't
into
get
it.
service?
Don't get into
And
it.
afterwards, if they're off the list, is there a way that they can seek funding to get their needs met and their requirements satisfied? Thank you.
Madam Chair, could you ask what community, where's that community located?
West Hills, right, West,
It's the Westgate community, Westgate.
Baltimore.
It's located, if you think of the city as having a a north-south line over on the west side and a little elbow there.
Elbow there.
We're in the elbow.
In the elbow, okay. I understand.
I'm just going to grab this because I think I can do it quickly. But if the school system can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not so much that anybody comes off the list as much as we just won't be able to get to as much of the list as quickly as was previously hoped. And we have known the whole time we're going to have to go back and get more money to finish the list. So this is just, we'll have to go back and get even more money to finish the list. Next up.
Okay, so this is a good, well, go ahead, sir, and then I'm going to have to excuse myself.
Hi, my name is James Brown. I also represent the Berea and Fort Worthington community. Remember, you hosted at our school 85, which is now being rebuilt. The problem is that the design, as Mr. Henson said, does not include the community. What they base on the school criterias, they're not also including the demographics of the community. We are in East Baltimore. It's a high-risk area. Most of our students are at high risk. The community center on this new design is now not being built. Our community center, as you well know, is a very strong and powerful one. We have spawned 2 community associations, and we're in the process of being the model for several more. In that community association, also programs like the CORE program has been founded. Our parents in the community have several problems with the design from K to 5, and I am here as representative of them also. They are concerned with the safety issues from 6th and 7th, 8th graders, which is now a new entity into the school, mixing and combining with the 5th from kindergarten to the 5th, K5 through K8. They also are concerned with the lack of, there's only one gymnasium in that design, which that gymnasium also dubs as the auditorium. So that gymnasium is being used by all 9 grade levels and is access to the auditorium. They would like another one included. They have a wonderful water feature, as Mr. Henson said, with indigenous grass, and that's all beautiful. But with the demographics of our neighborhood, it needs to be wiped out and continued on to be used as a sports field so we can have team sports. If you're adding 6th to 8th graders, you're going to need some sort of team sport activity. We have lots of land there to have an active field. There are no green areas as well, no 21st century green areas, no gardening and stuff like that, of which we have plenty of space for. The school also currently is at 312 students. It will go to 700 students, and the current design leads for 125% of overcrowding. As well as busing in students from 2 other areas. And in our areas, like I said, in demographic, East Baltimore, that's all territorial, and you have to kind of handle that a little bit gracefully. So what I would intend is the plans that are in effect at the moment be halted until you meet with community members, our community volunteers, our teachers, and our parents, because very hard to get parents in East Baltimore to attend, and we have them there now. So we have good representation to show you the flaws to make this transition successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand that the sponsor has some closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Henry. The schools, Councilman Henry summed it up for me. The schools that you were taking off the list are not really off the list for renovation, but they're coming back at another time. But here is what I really want to say. With School 85, they have a rec center in there. And when we rebuild the school, it would make perfect sense to put the rec center right back there. I mean, it makes perfect sense. There's a rec center already in there. So include the rec center in that school, you know? So, I mean, we talk about recreation in parks and the school system partnering so we can use shared space. Then why not put the rec center back in the school? And then my final remark is we need to get this done right because the state is waiting for Baltimore City to fail so they can say, we're not giving them phase 2 money. So we got to make this thing work from the Stadium Authority to Dr. Levy to our school system. We have to make this work. So I'm counting on you all. Because if it don't work and the state says, hey, you can't go to phase 2, because we know that Dr. Levy's group are the ones that approve or disapprove the construction of everything that goes on in the state of Maryland. Am I correct? The schools and all that, Right, okay. So we don't want him to be able to go back and say, hey, Baltimore City can't do it, they didn't do it, so phase 2 is off the table. And that's my final comment.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is one thing I want to ask of the school system before you go, and I'm going to ask Dr. Thornton. I think you're going to end up having to do the work. Okay. But I have heard a couple times a very general explanation of the gap, including tonight, between the 1.1 billion that was authorized and the 987 million that will actually be available to use. If you could please send something in writing, a document to the committee that details itemizing what that other 100 million is going to, because I feel like I have heard all of them at one time or another, but I have difficulty being able to repeat them when others ask it of me, and it would be nice to have a document I could refer to. Thank you very much. That all being said, thank you very much for attending this hearing of the Education and Youth Committee. Please check the area around your seat. No. Please, see, this is exactly what you should be doing. Please check the area around your seat to make sure that you've taken with you everything that you brought, and then we'll be closing the room. So please proceed forthwith to the first floor exit, and thank you very much for visiting City Hall. This hearing is